their emotional view of everything, these feminists, because they all tend to be erratic in many respects. They don't come from families which they don't know, they don't even understand men.
Were they lacking strong male figures?
Yes, all of them. Yep, all of them. We've met women, I've met young girls who's grown up in family, and they will debate you with their family watching, and they know they have women in the family and men in the family. Are you going now? You take care, Lindsay. Bye-bye. And they will debate you because they understand how men communicate. Now, you'll get a 30 or 40-year-old feminist who will start screaming, give you the fingers, say, see you next Tuesday, and then run off. And the girl is far more mature and will do a lot better than that woman. And women feel that men are aggressive, but men communicate differently to women.
No, but isn't it true that men are generally more aggressive? I think that's just a fact.
Well, you come from quite a masculine society. Our society's changed. You've still got in the Muslim community. You're a Muslim, aren't you? Yep. You've still got the roles, the male and female roles. In our society, men have been emasculated mainly by women.
No, but what I mean, look, I was born in this.
We used to be much more aggressive.
No, but I'll give you an example. I was born in this country. I spent my whole life here. I still think men here are aggressive as well. They're just off. By aggression, I don't mean unprovoked violence against innocent people. Yeah. I mean competitive, strong.
But that's good.
Yeah, and that's good. So I don't mean in a negative way. What I mean to say is, those men, when they are fettered, it can actually have an adverse effect because they're being emasculated. Yeah.
Well, I can give you an example of that. You've got somebody who comes up with an idea, and other men, some of them will be a bit dicks about it, but they will challenge it. And they'll beat out this idea till eventually you might get the truth come out, or you get a better understanding. Everybody will, including the guy that came up with it. Women tend to accept things. They don't do that. They don't have this need to challenge things in the same way.
In the classroom, this happens when a teacher says something and the woman,
The classroom's a disaster. Women teachers tend to benefit girls better than they do boys, and male teachers tend to benefit boys. Boys do better in it with a male teacher. Boys often get bored with a female teacher. And female teachers take offence to a lot of things boys do personally. And a lot of male teachers might just, in the old days, they'd strap them for their behaviour or something like that, but it would be forgotten. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of grown women can feel extreme resentment towards a boy, when in fact that's wrong. And of course, in a classroom, you've got a lot of children who have dysfunction, who have a lot of issues, or they may have trouble sitting still because of their genetics or whatever, or usually because of the family dynamic. And then you get this inane type explanation, it's because of toxic masculinity. And then in America they give them Ritalin, which they give to hyperactivity, ADHD, and it ruins I knew a woman with dyspraxia, and she was on medication for years, and it ruined her health. It gave her heart problems, and she did eventually die. It was meant to help her. It's like speed, ADHD. They've now got non-amphetamine type medications for boys. But the thing is, in a natural classroom, you have a break, all the boys run around, and by the time you're 6, you know if you give anyone any lip, you'll get a punch in the nose. So you learn to behave yourself reasonably as you get what you want or what you need, and you play. Girls are different, apart from girls in cities where they can tend to be more violent because they're in a more aggressive situation. But boys and girls are different. And
sorry, in the playground, you see boys in groups of 6 and 7 and 10.
I don't know.
But girls are normally in pairs. They don't actually have bigger groups.
Yeah.
This is something
they're probably more intimate in their communication and their friendship than boys are. And boys do it in different ways.
So this thing about Ritalin that you said about basically domesticating those men who are. So is that related? Is that related to women are the way that they are? Say a man must become a woman simply is.
Camellia Pagla is she's an old lady now, but she was an academic about the classics, and she was a lesbian as well. And she was brilliant. She still is. And the feminists didn't like her because she stood up and talked about standards. and academia and all the rest of it, and they didn't like it. And she said she was one of the few people who she remembered her grandparents were manual workers, and I'd get home from the factory. She says most of these other academic feminists, they were completely detached from family members who actually did manual work or work like that. They're all come from academia, so it's a step above reality. Most of these people don't, anyone who does manual work or have done manual work or even sweep a bloody floor, man or women, I tend to get along more with them because they understand the practicality of life. These people who deal with
ivory
theories,
tower, yeah.
Yeah, they deal with theories and feelings, but it's all academic.
Sure.
The reality, like that lady, I got forthright with her because she has no idea what a lot of men go through and the way that they never see their children again. And we have a charity which helps men giving legal aid, legal advice to men for free, and they
are you guys the ones who blocked the motorway?
No. That was to do with some. No, we don't do things like that. Okay. No, so they gave legal advice to men who are going through the courts.
Oh yeah.
And the McKinsey friends, which means they assist the man. Most people don't know about it. There's the guy here wrote a book on it. Vincent McGovern. He's amazing. It's what's happening slowly is intelligent, talented women are beginning to see the holes in it.
Yeah. So as a movement, you would say that you're not anti-women, you're anti-feminist.
Yep.
And what you're trying to do is, you don't have a problem with equal opportunities, but you have a problem with state-enforced egalitarian intervention. Yeah. That's your problem.
Critical theory, which talks about equality and rights, and that everything should be the same. You're gonna. My mother's husband, he had a factory, and he said if you pay, he was forced to pay everyone the same. And he says it's wrong because he had some staff members that were really good. He says you end up everyone the same as your worst worker. There's no point trying. And that's what communism does.
A lot of these people are left.
Of course they are. Yeah, communists, socialists, Marxists, and all that, and they don't know anything about what happened in Russia, what happened in China, what's happening in Africa now through communism. They're the biggest monopoly ever. And they say, oh, I hate capitalism. Well, actually, we're not talking about capitalists with Amazon. That's a globalist. That's a monopoly. Capitalism is someone who owns a shop, and they have their family, and they employ people around them, and the money stays in the area.
Based on a merit.
It doesn't all get sucked out to a billionaire who's worth a couple of $100 billion, where you never see it.
So, in terms of a lot of what you're saying, this sort of war, this culture war between, liberal values and then traditionalism.
Yeah.
Now, from a Muslim perspective, we can give an argument based upon our religion. We can say, so our religion teaches this. So even within the Muslim world, they've tried to do this. They've tried to liberalize and do these things.
You've got it now. I met Carl Benjamin on the train, Sargon of Akkad, and he said the Muslims don't know what's going to hit them because there's a push to actually go into the Muslim community and convince a lot of the women to be feminists.
Yeah.
And that's happening now in some of the mosques. They're having politically correct meetings and stuff like that.
Well, I'll tell you.
It's going to break the family.
Yeah, I'll tell you something that they're doing. They're funding social scientists to go to from Pakistan or India or whatever, to go to different places. Not India, but they go to the West. They study the critical race and this sort of thing. They come back. They spread those ideas. The pushback we can push back using our faith. We can say that this is wrong in our faith. But when it comes to, for example, the view that you're trying to propagate here against the liberal onslaught, you can only make an argument based upon utility. You can't actually say it's wrong categorically. Would you say that's a correct sort of description?
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Okay, so for example, this feminist that you were talking to right now, if I was talking to a so-called Muslim feminist, I would simply say, well, you cannot be a Muslim and a feminist, and therefore we would use faith as a barrier. Here, I saw you were trying to reason, and she didn't want to hear it. That's what it sounded like. So, what I'm pointing at is that there's something lacking in your arsenal.
Of course, because we've lost our religion.
Because you sound like a Christian. Are you?
No, I'm not. But I do believe in. I'm a gardener, so I believe in creation because I see things. and Christianity did do things which, I mean, it's been subverted before. But it is, what was I say? The difficulty I think Muslims are going to have, Muslim men, is because all this stuff about Muslim men suppress their wives and all the rest of it. I'd meet Muslim men who are around who tell me that their wives boss them around. Muslim men care about women. And so when women come to them and say, look, my needs aren't being met, this is happening, Muslim men want to help their women. That's the thing that breaks it, because Muslim men and any man does not want to suppress women around them. This is the big lie about our history
men
in Europe, is that men are always keeping women down. It's complete rubbish. You only need to look in the Doomsday Book, which is hundreds of years ago, which tells about taxation, that women were actually the ones who owned the stalls and sold stuff amongst the peasants. So they did have things. And then they bring in, they talked about, and so many lies have been told. They said there was a thing about a whip the thickness of your thumb or something to beat your wife with. It was completely made up by a radical feminist. Everyone believes it.
Yeah. So on this thing that you said about the women that work, traditionally women didn't work. Generally, it was only exceptions, right? So that's what you're pointing at, yeah? So the current issue that we have, and this is because we live in a global village, there's been a demonization of the housewife. The housewife is... Yeah, so can you just elaborate a little bit?
Well, women, feminists don't like women. They don't like natural women who make decisions that they want to make. They want to be part of a family.
They
want to have a family. They bully the hell out of them. That's your argument. And what was I going to say then? I've forgotten. I had a good point I was going to make about... oh yes, in the past in Britain, women didn't like another woman working, taking a man's wages, because they knew that if a man had the job, he had his wife to provide for. Because in those days, it's different now completely, but in those days, if a woman held a job, it meant there was a woman somewhere not getting provided for by a man.
Oh, wow.
And they did not like it. They did not want a woman to be having a man's job. And that was remember, that was in times when there was no welfare. There was the poorhouse, there was the orphanages, and remember, kids that were born out of wedlock weren't allowed in an orphanage. There was all these things that went on in our society when it was very harsh.
Yeah.
It's taken hundreds and hundreds of years to improve life for the average person in this country. And now we've become so rich and so over-comfortable, we've forgotten what the important things are.
Sure. I just want your thought on one more thing. Do you think feminism can survive in a place that's not rich? Because you mentioned wealth here, right?
No, I was going to say, with India and countries like that, they can't afford feminism.
They can't afford it.
The woman would die if her husband wasn't there. But you know that, guess which country's got the biggest men's rights movement in the world?
Men's rights movement in the world.
It'll surprise you. India. Yeah, you got it. India.
Really?
Because they changed the dowry laws to protect women, and now women have got the whip hand. And a lot of women, because of it, they can say that the man promised to marry her and didn't. And not only does she put him in prison, but she can put the whole bloody family in prison. Because in the dowry laws, often it was the in-laws that
said it.
That enforced it. And in the worst things, they had bride burning, where to get force the wife's parents to pay more, they would threaten they would kill her.
Wow.
And that was in the worst situations. And so obviously India didn't want that happening, so they stopped it. But now women are doing the worst things possible to the man and his family. They've got, and a lot of these women are absolutely awful doing that. And so the thing is, India, the culture in India, the Hindus, the Sikhs, the Muslims, very different to Western culture. They seem to be able to work. It was a Neil Kumar I've met. He's from something about the Family Association, I think it's called. Indian men will go together and they will have a meeting in a sports stadium, or where all the seats are at a sports match. They will go anywhere and have a meeting, and they will set up network. Our culture's not so good at that. And they've been helping men all over the country, and because everyone thinks that
and in a way
India is a patriarch. It's not. In many respects, it's a matriarch. Women have an enormous amount of power in India.
So, like a lot of the stuff that so I mean, you spoke about how it's more organized there, but it's not just about organization. It's about freedom of speech. So what you were saying here, I thought was very reasonable, but there was hostility here, there's hostility that was growing, and if there were a lot more women, there would be a lot more. But freedom of speech at Speaker's Corner is far more than what you'd get at university and other places.
I couldn't say this anywhere else.
Yeah.
I couldn't say it on a street corner. The thing is...
You probably could say it in India though.
Yeah, probably. Well, Mike Buchanan, the one who owns the men's Justice for Men and Boys and Women Who Love Them, he's been to a conference in India. And then Anil Kumar and other people like him come to a lot of our international conferences. And since things have been changing around us, and people used to be really rude or horrible to us, but not anymore. Our speakings have got better, my speaking and other people, my colleagues. Where have they gone? I don't know where they are.
No, but you did a good job here.
I've learned.
I commend you for that. Because you were very patient, and there was one point in which she was like, you can't talk on my issues.
Yeah.
But she was talking on your issues.
Yeah.
And it was...
You see, I didn't hate her, and I actually respect her. I don't respect her opinions, but I'm a man, she's a woman, I'm talking to her. I don't want to pinch her bum or anything like that. I don't want to be rude to her. She actually looks like quite a professional person, so I feel a little bit of respect to her, but I think her ideas are wrong on this, so I was debating it. Whether or not she had any respect for me is another thing.
Well, I doubt
That's
that.
quite funny, that's quite funny.
Well, actually, when you brought up something which she should have responded to, you said, if you start off by telling women they're victim, you're, I think, giving them a disadvantage. Disable them, right. So I think that's important, because when I'm sometimes talking to women who have these feministic ideas, it's a defense mechanism that they have, that every man out there is trash, is evil, is trying to destroy their lives. So that victimhood mindset, it creates this sort of collective social brain of the women to not allow the men even the chance to explain why patriarchy, gender roles, and toxic what they call toxic masculinity, what we would call traditional masculinity, why there were some benefits to this, right?
Well, you look at a party girl who goes to a lot of parties. She will have sex with the strong, wild-looking man, often the bad man. Now, the well-behaved, responsible man, boring. And this is hypergamy. This is the term. She's going for the higher status, what she thinks is the higher status male. A lot of women will horribly use the nice man. She may have. There's a lot of.
By the way, do you agree with that? Because I mean, you're making a descriptive claim.
Yeah.
But would you prescribe that? Would you say that that's what should happen in society?
No.
That women go for higher.
I think when you've got a culture that has rules in it to try and protect people, obviously it's not always going to work. You don't have your daughter going out to parties like that. She'll meet people with a chaperone, and the family will be involved, and she'll know more about it and decide that she wants a sensible husband. But she still might, like a man, will fantasize about having some wild, leggy woman. This woman will fantasize about having some big,
dangerous,
muscular, wild man. Now that's in your head, but when you do it, a lot of women who divorce their husbands will go with one of these wild men, and a lot of them, they aren't responsible. Or even if the man decides that, I've met men who said they met a single mother, and he was saying, oh, you got children. He's interested in saying, she didn't want to know him then. She only wants it for her sex and her fantasy. But as soon as he starts getting involved, oh, the children, she doesn't want it. And of course, even saying that, anyone assumes a man that's interested in children, it's for sex or some perverted reason. Yeah. They don't realise, and children need both. Men can do things with children, with the excitement and throwing them and this and that. Women don't tend to do that. They excite. Jordan Peterson says this. Men will chuck the child up and catch it and just take them to the edge of danger, and the child will love it and they'll get their confidence up. The women don't tend to do that. The child needs both, and the child also needs the mother's holding, and that if she's that kind of woman. But a lot of women don't know how to be women now, and because the feminists have told women that being a woman is weak,
masculine
is weak. You've got to ape men. You know, ape means is an old term for like copying. You've got to copy men, but why don't they copy nice men?
Why don't they just copy nice women?
Yeah, because they think that's a loser's thing. How many men at the top of everything. How many men have power over everybody, over everything? Men, and when you get older, if you're reasonable, you can have influence. Very few men, if they're a tyrant, they better be good at being it, because someone's going to knock them over. Another man will come along, or a group of men will come along and take them down, which will be good.
I mean, in the state of nature, and I think this is something that's powerful, without intervention, you will always have the men, because of their competitive nature, dominating every single institution.
Yeah.
So because of that, shouldn't there be a realization from the feminists that maybe there's a biological difference, it's not a cultural difference?
But the word you used there wrongly was realization. They don't live in the real world.
I like that. I like that.
But you've got to remember, most radical feminists, or the academic ones, they aren't normal women. A lot of them either resent their father, even they can resent men for not standing up to their mother. Gloria Steinem, who's the Australian feminist? The awful Australian one, the one who's now gets... Jermaine Greer.
Yeah.
Her mother treated her father like a dog. He was in the war. She stuck him in she took all his money off him and stuck him in. And even Jermaine Greer writes this, she never knew her father. Yet she's a feminist who spits on men. And in this story, this is the hypocrisy of it. She's crying because she didn't know her father. As far as I wouldn't bother reading the book. I should. But her mother destroyed her father. I don't think she even liked her mother. A lot of feminists they have problems with their mother, and their father wasn't there to rescue them, so they end up hating men. A lot of feminists are also, most people don't realise, they're quite perverted. And if you go into a gay bar, you won't see children. You go into a lesbian bar, you'll see girls. Most people don't know that.
Do you mean the radical feminists, right?
I'm saying a lot of radical feminists tend to be the worst kind of lesbian people. Not all lesbians are like that, some lesbians like men. But you'll find if you go into a same-sex environment, if it's men, like men who are gay, you won't see children. But you go into a lesbian bar, there will be girls there. And a lot of them will say, well, it's my niece, when in fact it's not their niece. And there's a famous book called The Vagina Monologues. The hero in that was a 13-year-old girl. So there is stuff in this, because now with a lot of the stuff that they're pushing with gender and all the rest of it, there's pedophiles coming out of the woodwork who are wanting to make that legal as well. And sex is good, man-boy love. And it's the stuff's being pushed by these kind of people because they don't have a balance or a morality. Children aren't for that. They get for that when they've reached adolescence and they can make a relationship then. There's a lot of stuff with these people which is really, really not good. And they don't know. And they think that a father in a family with authority, that shares authority with the mother, is really dirty or bad. I met a woman once, she had the most amazing curly hair, and she said when she was a girl, she came downstairs, and her father said, "You're not going out like that, get upstairs." So she ran upstairs, stomp, and slammed the door. And she says, "I'm glad my father did," because she went down there wearing something. She was a girl about to go out dressed very provocatively. And the father said, "You're not going out like that."
See, today, that would be considered
abuse.
Abuse, and not only this. For example, in Islam, we have this concept of protective jealousy.
Yeah.
So we believe that if a woman in a man's family, she walks out the house in a way that's promiscuous, in a way that she's revealing her clothes. Now, if he has the power and the influence over her, and he doesn't stop that, then he is sinful for that. That is evil.
Shame, yeah.
It's an evil thing.
Because she's hurting herself.
Well, what happens in society actually is, I just want to relate something to you, because I think this is something which is the crux of the matter. It is the man's authority to have the say in terms of how a woman should, in her family, should dress or do these types of things. And today's society, that's blasphemy. It's blasphemy, this idea.
It's even hard for me to hear.
Yeah, but that's because you may have been brought up in an egalitarian society.
I've been brought up in a very female society.
Like, for example, I'm a father.
Yeah.
I would not want my daughters to walk out in a certain way.
See, the other thing is that women are beautiful, and there can be a real beauty and dignity And without, I mean, a lot of the shops sell for little girls cut-off tops and earrings and mini skirts. These are children. They shouldn't be dressing like that. A lot of, and
you know, a lot of people will freak out what you just said there.
But see, a lot of girls think that the